Captain Christopher Nelson stood at the viewing deck of the exploration vessel Horizon, watching as the massive space station grew larger in the distance. After 6 months of travel following the first signal, humanity was about to make first contact with the Galactic Council. "Nervous, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, who approached quietly to stand beside him. "Wouldn't be human if I wasn't," Nelson replied with a small smile. "This changes everything, Olivia. No going back after today." The Horizon slowed as it approached the designated docking area. The space station was unlike anything humans had built, a spinning wheel of impossible size with delicate spires extending in all directions, glowing with soft blue and green lights. "Docking procedure initiated," announced the ship's AI through the speakers. "Council representatives are standing by in the reception chamber." Nelson straightened his uniform. "Time to meet the neighbors." The welcoming committee waited behind a transparent barrier, a safety protocol for first contacts. Nelson counted representatives from 7 clearly different species. Some were roughly humanoid, others decidedly not. One floated in what appeared to be a small tank of liquid, while another stood on 4 legs with arms that split into 3 separate limbs each. A tall, slender being with pale blue skin stepped forward. "Welcome to Council Station Alpha. I am High Minister Ilara of the Cygnus Collective, current chair of the Galactic Council." Her voice came through translators that the Council had provided specifications for months ago. "We represent 27 spacefaring civilizations united in peaceful cooperation and knowledge exchange." Nelson performed the greeting gesture they had been instructed to use. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we are honored by this historic meeting." After the formal introductions, the human delegation was escorted to a large meeting hall. As they walked, Nelson noticed how the artificial gravity seemed slightly off. Not enough to be difficult, but enough to feel strange. He also noticed how some council members watched the humans with what he could only interpret as surprise. "You move with remarkable ease," commented a reptilian being who introduced himself as Scholar Zextak of the Valaxian Empire. "Most new species struggle with our standard gravity settings." "Earth gravity is slightly stronger than your station standard," explained Dr. Alan Winters, the ship's xenobiologist. "We're actually finding it comfortable." The reptilian's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. "Fascinating, a high-gravity world species, that explains much." The meeting proceeded with formal discussions about humanity's place in the galactic community. High Minister Ilara explained the structure of the council, trade agreements, and territorial boundaries. Everything seemed remarkably welcoming until a small furry delegate raised the topic of classification. "We must address the environmental categorization," the delegate said. "Based on the data provided, Earth clearly qualifies as a Class 9 death world." A murmur passed through the alien delegates. "I'm not familiar with that term," Nelson said carefully. High Minister Ilara's expression was unreadable to human eyes. "It is merely a classification system based on planetary conditions. Earth's combination of high gravity, oxygen content, temperature extremes, tectonic activity, and biological diversity, particularly your abundance of predator species and pathogens, places it in the highest category of environmental challenge. In simple terms," added Zexatak with what might have been a smile, "you come from a planet that most council species would find quickly fatal without significant protection. Hence, Death World." Nelson noticed how the other delegates were now watching them with new interest, some with obvious caution. "I see," Nelson replied evenly. "And what does this classification mean for diplomatic relations?" "Nothing of concern," Ilara assured him. "We value diversity. However, it does raise questions about where humanity might best fit within our established frameworks." After the meeting, Lieutenant Martinez pulled Nelson aside in their temporary quarters. "Did you notice how their demeanor changed after that Death World classification? They're scared of us." Nelson nodded. "Or at least wary." "Dr. Winters, what's your assessment?" Winters looked up from his datapad. "It's fascinating. I've been comparing the biological data they shared. Humans have significantly higher endurance, pain tolerance, and environmental adaptability than any council species. What's normal for us would be extraordinary for them. Is that good or bad for diplomacy? Nelson asked. Hard to say, Martinez answered. But I noticed something else. When they mentioned the Galactic Trials, several delegates exchanged looks. The Galactic Trials had been explained as a friendly competition held every 50 years, where member species competed in various challenges. The next one was scheduled to begin in 6 months. High Minister Ilara seemed very eager for us to participate, Nelson noted. Almost too eager. The next day, they were formally invited to send a human team to the trials. Ilara explained it was a great honor for a new species to participate so quickly. They would be offered special accommodations as newcomers. We understand that new members require certain handicaps to compete fairly, Ilara explained. These are merely to ensure that the games remain enjoyable for all participants. Nelson read through the proposed handicaps carefully. Limited access to certain training facilities, restrictions on equipment, special lodging in what was described as the high-gravity sector of the competition station. These seem oddly specific, Nelson observed. Standard protocol, assured Zextak, who had joined the meeting. All new species receive similar considerations. Something in the reptilian's tone made Nelson suspicious, but he could find no diplomatic way to refuse without potentially insulting their new galactic neighbors. Very well, Nelson agreed reluctantly. We accept these terms. As they left the meeting, Martinez whispered, There's something they're not telling us. I know, Nelson replied quietly, but sometimes the only way to learn the rules is to play the game. Later that evening, as the human delegation prepared to return to Earth with news of the contact, Winters made a discovery while reviewing the Council's shared data. Captain, look at this, he said, pointing to his screen. Historical records of previous trials. No new species has ever placed better than last in their first participation, not once in over 2,000 years. Nelson frowned. That can't be just coincidence. And look at these handicap agreements for previous new entrants, nearly identical to ours. Martinez leaned in. So the trials aren't just games. They're establishing a pecking order. Nelson's expression hardened. And they expect us to take our place at the bottom. What do we do? Asked Winters. Nelson looked out the viewport at the vast expanse of stars. We prepare, we select our best people, and we show them exactly what Deathworlders are capable of. As the horizon prepared to depart the next morning, Zextak approached Nelson one last time. I look forward to seeing humans at the trials, the Valaxian said. It's always educational for new species. I'm sure it will be educational for everyone, Nelson replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. 6 months wasn't much time to prepare for a competition against species with technologies centuries ahead of Earth's. But as the horizon broke orbit from the Council Station and set course for home, Nelson made a decision that would change galactic history. Send a message to Earth Command, he told Martinez. Tell them we need their best and brightest. And tell them one more thing. What's that, Captain? Nelson's eyes narrowed with determination. Tell them to find people who don't like losing. 6 months passed quickly. The human team arrived at Nexus Station, the massive space structure built specifically for the galactic trials. It orbited a swirling gas giant with rings that shimmered in blues and purples. Commander Samantha Wright led the human delegation up the ramp into the station. She had been chosen to lead after a worldwide selection process that tested not just physical abilities, but mental toughness and adaptability. Behind her walked the 4 other team members. Jordan Kim, engineering genius, Darius Washington, former Special Forces, Dr. Eleanor Reeves, expert in alien biology, and Vincent Rodriguez, diplomat and language specialist. Remember, Wright said quietly, we're here to compete, not to make waves, at least not yet. They were met by a Valaxian official with scales that shifted from green to blue as he moved. Welcome to Nexus Station. I am Coordinator Sev. Your quarters are in Section 12, Level 3. As they followed him through wide corridors filled with representatives from dozens of species, Wright noticed many curious stares. Some aliens backed away slightly as the humans passed. Sev led them to a section of the station that felt immediately different. The air was thicker, the artificial gravity noticeably stronger. "These are your assigned quarters," Sev said, "designed to accommodate your special needs." Jordan Kim glanced at a control panel on the wall. "This section is set to 1.2 standard gravity," he whispered to Wright. Wright smiled politely at Sev. "How thoughtful. This feels just like home." The Valaxian's eye membranes blinked rapidly. "Most species find this section quite taxing. The previous occupants requested transfer after only 2 days. We'll be just fine," Wright assured him. "When do we meet the other competitors?" "The welcome ceremony begins in 3 hours. Your equipment arrived yesterday and has been placed in your training area." After Sev left, the team inspected their quarters, which were Spartan but functional. Then they went to check their equipment. "This can't be right," Jordan Kim said as he examined the items delivered from Earth. "These power cells have been modified. The energy output is at least 20% lower than standard." Darius Washington picked up the environment suits they would use for the space challenge. "The mobility in these joints has been restricted too. Look at this." He demonstrated the limited range of motion. Dr. Reeves was examining a data tablet. "According to the rulebook, all our equipment modifications fall within the beginner accommodation standards. They're technically not breaking any rules. They're just bending them until they nearly snap," Rodriguez said. "Classic power move. Make everything harder for the newcomers while pretending to help them." The welcome ceremony was held in an enormous arena at the center of the station. 27 species were represented, each team wearing distinctive colors. The humans stood out in their blue and silver uniforms. A tall, imposing Valaxian approached them. His scales were deep crimson with gold patterns, marking him as high-ranking. "Commander Wright, I presume," he said. "Admiral Zexa Kavala, 9-time champion of the Valaxian Empire." Wright shook his hand, noting the surprise in his eyes when she matched his grip strength. "An honor, Admiral. I wanted to personally welcome humanity to the trials. It's rare for a new species to participate so soon after contact." His mouth formed what might have been a smile. No new species has ever won an event in their first games, but participation itself is educational. "We're fast learners," Wright replied. "Indeed, I look forward to seeing how Deathworlders compete. My advice? Observe this time. Learn the unwritten rules. Your next participation in 50 years might be more successful." As the Admiral walked away, Rodriguez leaned closer to Wright. "He's telling us to know our place." "That much is clear," Wright said. "Let's see what else we can learn." The first event was a tactical simulation that combined strategy and reflexes. The humans watched as the more experienced teams demonstrated incredible coordination and knowledge of the game system. When it was humanity's turn, they struggled with the unfamiliar controls and finished last. "That was embarrassing," Washington muttered as they returned to their quarters. "It was informative," Wright corrected. "We now know exactly how the interface works." The next day brought a space navigation challenge. Again, the humans performed poorly, placing second to last only because one team had technical difficulties. After their third straight disappointing finish in the engineering challenge, Wright called a team meeting. "Something's not adding up," she said. "We're performing well below our training levels." Kim had been dismantling some of their equipment. "It's more than just the obvious handicaps. Look at these circuit pathways. They've been subtly rerouted to create microsecond delays. Nothing that violates the specs they gave us, but enough to throw off timing. The other new species are struggling, too," Rodriguez pointed out. "I spoke with the Arcsuri team. This is their third games, and they're still being kept down by tradition." Dr. Reeves had been quietly analyzing data from their first performances. "I've been comparing our biological responses with the other competitors. There's something interesting here," Our adrenaline response and stress adaptation is completely off the charts compared to every other species. Is that good? Washington asked. It could be. When we're under pressure, our performance improves in ways that seem to be unique to humans. The other species don't have an equivalent biological mechanism. So the more pressure we're under, Wright began, the better we might perform relative to them, Reeves finished. Later that night, Wright met secretly with the Arcsuri representative, a tall, thin being with 4 arms and iridescent skin. The games are designed to establish and maintain hierarchy, the Arcsuri explained. New species are expected to lose gracefully for centuries before slowly being allowed to advance. It's all politics. That's not how humans operate, Wright said. No one beats the system. The founding species control everything, the rules, the equipment, the judging. Has anyone ever tried not playing by their unwritten rules? The Arcsuri's skin darkened. They wouldn't tolerate it. The next morning, Commissioner Trenok, a small, furry being with 6 eyes, announced the endurance challenge. Competitors would need to maintain specific tasks while environmental conditions gradually became more stressful. This is where we show them what humans can do, Wright told her team. Forget trying to compete like they do. We're going to compete like humans. Washington went first. As the challenge progressed, other competitors began to falter when conditions became uncomfortably hot, then cold, then as gravity increased. The Valaxian representative, a champion, performed impressively, but Washington kept going, even as the environment reached levels that caused judges to exchange concerned glances. When the gravity hit twice standard level, he was still moving efficiently while others struggled. He finished 3rd overall, behind the Valaxian champion and a species adapted for extreme environments. The result sent shockwaves through the arena. Impossible for a first-time competitor, Admiral Zex Kavala protested. They must be using enhancements. A full medical scan proved Washington was completely unmodified. How? The Admiral demanded when they crossed paths later. Washington smiled. We come from a death world, remember? This is easy compared to our training. That night, Wright gathered her team. Now they know what we're capable of, so we stop playing nice. Stop trying to compete like aliens. We compete like humans. What does that mean exactly? Rodriguez asked. Wright's smile contained no warmth. It means we show them why Earth is called a death world. News of Washington's surprising 3rd-place finish spread quickly through Nexus Station. Aliens watched the human team with new interest as they walked through the common areas the next morning. They're afraid of us now, Rodriguez said as he noticed several beings step aside as they passed. Good, Wright replied. Fear can be useful. Dr. Reeves, what's our next step? Dr. Reeves had spent the night analyzing data from all previous events. The survival challenge is tomorrow. It's perfect for our new approach. The team gathered in their quarters to review the rules of the survival challenge. Competitors would be placed in a large simulated environment with changing conditions. They had to reach a series of checkpoints while overcoming obstacles. Teams could impede each other without direct harm. Jordan Kim had been working on their equipment. I've found ways to modify our gear that are technically within regulations. The rules define what we can't do, but there are many things they don't mention because no one has tried them before. Wright smiled. Excellent. What else? I've been speaking with representatives from newer species, Rodriguez said. The Arcsuri, the Nelvians, and the Tentari are all tired of being kept down. They're willing to form unofficial alliances. The biological data shows something interesting, Dr. Reeves added. Many species have sensory sensitivities we don't share. The Valaxians, for instance, have excellent vision but are disturbed by rapid, unpredictable movements. And they hate loud, sudden noises. Washington grinned. So psychological warfare is on the table? As long as we don't break the explicit rules, Wright confirmed. Tomorrow we show them what humans are really capable of. The survival challenge began the next day. 20 teams entered the massive simulation chamber. The environment started as a dense forest, but would change over time. The Valaxian team, led by Admiral Zexkavala himself, took an early lead. Humans stayed in the middle of the pack, conserving energy. Wright noticed how cautiously the other teams moved, avoiding risky routes even when they offered advantages. When the environment shifted to a steep, rocky mountain terrain, Kim deployed their modified climbing gear. Instead of using the standard anti-gravity assists like other teams, the humans climbed manually, moving faster than expected. "What are they doing?" one of the judges asked, as the humans began gaining positions. When they reached a wide ravine that needed to be crossed, other teams carefully used bridge-building tools. The humans arrived and assessed the gap. "We can jump this," Washington said. The alien teams watched in shock as the humans backed up and ran full speed toward the ravine. One by one, they leaped across the gap, a move considered far too risky by council species. "That's impossible," Admiral Zexkavala protested to a judge. "They must be using hidden technology." The judge checked the sensors. "No technology detected. They just jumped." As the environment changed again to a dark cave system, the humans switched tactics. Instead of using the light sources provided, they moved efficiently in near darkness, their Earth-evolved eyes adapting better than expected. Inside the caves, they encountered the Valaxian team. Wright signaled her team to spread out, surrounding the Valaxians. Then on her mark, the humans began making sudden, unpredictable movements in the shadows while Washington created loud, echoing noises by striking the cave walls. The Valaxians' scales turned pale, a sign of stress. Their coordinated movements faltered. "What's wrong with you?" Admiral Zexkavala hissed at his team. "They're just trying to frighten us." But the psychological tactic worked. The Valaxians hurried ahead, making mistakes in their rush to escape the disturbing humans. As the environment shifted to an underwater section, the final stage, most teams slowed considerably. Water was difficult for many species to navigate. The humans, however, had trained extensively for this. Kim deployed their modified underwater propulsion devices, which used an innovative design that technically fit within regulations, but performed better than standard equipment. The humans surged ahead, passing team after team. Their efficient swimming and ability to hold their breath longer than most species gave them another edge. When they reached the final checkpoint, only the Valaxian team was ahead of them. Admiral Zexkavala looked back in shock as the humans gained ground quickly. In a desperate move, he ordered his team to release a cloud of sediment into the water, obscuring visibility. A legal but rarely used tactic. The humans didn't hesitate. While other species would have waited for the water to clear, Wright signaled her team to continue at full speed through the cloud. They emerged on the other side, startling the Valaxians who hadn't expected such a response. In the final stretch, Washington and Wright overtook Zexkavala. The humans reached the finish platform first, winning the event. The spectator area erupted in chaos. No first-time species had ever won an event in the history of the games. "They cheated!" Zexkavala shouted as he emerged from the water. "This cannot stand." Commissioner Trenok reviewed the entire event recording with the judges. After an hour of deliberation, they announced their decision. "We find no rule violations by the human team," Trenok stated. "Their victory is confirmed." The human team celebrated while the station buzzed with shock and excitement. Betting systems were thrown into disarray, and the news spread to every corner of Nexus. Admiral Zexkavala confronted Wright after the announcement. "You may have won today, Commander, but you've made powerful enemies. The Council will not forget this disruption." "We're just getting started, Admiral." Wright replied calmly. "You've been at the top so long you've forgotten what real competition looks like." That evening, representatives from 7 newer species visited the human quarters to offer congratulations and seek advice. "How did you do it?" the Arcsuri delegate asked. "No one defeats the established powers. You've been playing by their unwritten rules," Rodriguez explained. "The rule that says you should lose gracefully and wait your turn. We decided not to accept that rule." "The Valaxians are furious," the Nelvian representative warned. They're calling for an emergency council meeting to add new restrictions. Wright nodded. We expected that. Rodriguez, is our coalition ready? Yes. We have enough support to block any rule changes under council bylaws requiring consensus for mid-game modifications. Later that night, after the others had gone to sleep, Kim approached Wright with new findings. I've discovered something interesting about the next event, he said. The combat simulation has several loopholes we can exploit. Nothing illegal, but approaches no one has tried before. Perfect, Wright said. We're going to keep pushing. The Deathworlders are done playing nice. Across the station, in the Phylaxian quarters, Admiral Zex Kavala gathered his allies. These humans are dangerous. They refuse to respect tradition or know their place. We must ensure they learn a proper lesson. One of his advisors leaned forward. What do you propose, Admiral? Zex Kavala's scales darkened. By the time these games end, humanity will understand exactly why the Council has stood unchallenged for millennia. The emergency council meeting took place early the next morning. Representatives from all 27 species gathered in the central chamber of Nexus Station. Admiral Zex Kavala stood before them, his scales shimmering with barely contained anger. The humans are disrupting centuries of tradition, he declared. We must implement new safety measures to protect the integrity of the games. The proposed changes were clearly aimed at limiting human advantages. Restrictions on jumping distances, bans on psychological tactics, limitations on how long competitors could hold their breath. Rodriguez stood up, speaking on behalf of humanity. These proposals violate Section 7 of the game's charter, which forbids mid-competition rule changes targeting specific biological traits of any participating species. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Arcsuri representative rose next, followed by delegates from 6 other newer species. Each cited different sections of the charter that would be violated by the proposed changes. Commissioner Trenok looked troubled. The proposals cannot proceed without consensus approval. Given the objections raised, these changes must be tabled until after the current games. Admiral Zex Kavala's scales darkened to a deep crimson. This is unacceptable. These Deathworlders are making a mockery of our traditions. We're simply competing according to the established rules, Wright replied calmly. Perhaps the Admiral is upset because after centuries of dominance he's forgotten what real competition feels like. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No new species had ever spoken so boldly to a ranking member of the founding species. After the meeting, Wright gathered her team. The Phylaxians will try something else, be on guard. They've already tried, Kim said, holding up their equipment for the combat simulation event. Someone tampered with our gear overnight. Fortunately, I anticipated this and set up monitoring devices. The evidence was brought before Commissioner Trenok, who reluctantly issued a formal warning to the Phylaxian team. No further punishment was given, which didn't surprise the humans. The system is designed to protect those in power, Rodriguez explained. We shouldn't expect fairness from the judges. As the teams prepared for the combat simulation event, Admiral Zex Kavala approached the human area. Several other competitors stopped to watch. You may have won one event through your unusual methods, he said to Wright, but the combat simulation requires more than tricks and primitive leaping about. Washington stepped forward, standing taller than the Admiral. Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand what humans are capable of. The crowd grew as Washington picked up a metal railing that had been removed during equipment setup. With a steady motion, he bent it with his bare hands, creating a U-shape. The Admiral's scales paled. Impossible. Washington offered the bent metal to Zex Kavala with a smile. Would you like to try straightening it? The Admiral backed away without attempting the challenge. Video of the incident spread quickly throughout the station. By the time the combat simulation began, many competitors were visibly nervous about facing the humans. The combat simulation took place in a large arena with various terrain types. Teams competed to capture and hold control points while using non-lethal weapons that registered hits electronically. The humans entered with modified gear that Kim had redesigned to better suit their biology. While other species relied on standard tactics taught in Council military academies, the humans deployed Earth military strategies never before seen in the games. They used feints and diversions. They created false targets. They communicated, using hand signals instead of vocal commands, preventing others from anticipating their moves. When the Valaxian team confronted them at a central control point, the humans didn't engage directly as expected. Instead, Washington and Wright circled around while Rodriguez drew their attention at the front. Their patterns are erratic. One Valaxian officer complained. They don't follow any standard doctrine. The humans captured 3 control points in rapid succession, moving with a speed and coordination that stunned observers. When they fought, they used techniques optimized for their unique biology, leveraging their endurance and adaptability rather than copying alien methods. Dr. Reeves had identified specific movements that appeared threatening to different species, based on evolutionary responses. The humans incorporated these into their approach, causing instinctive hesitation among their opponents. By the halfway point, several teams had fallen far behind. The Valaxians remained the primary competition, but even they struggled to counter human tactics they had never encountered before. They sacrifice individual advantage for team success, Commissioner Trenok observed to his assistant. Most unusual for a competitive species. The final confrontation came at the central control point. The Valaxians had fortified their position, expecting a frontal assault. Instead, the humans split into 3 groups attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. They're dividing their forces, Admiral Zex Kavala said with satisfaction. A beginner's mistake. But the divided approach worked perfectly. The Valaxians couldn't defend all angles at once, and the humans broke through their position in 3 places. Within minutes, they had secured the final control point. The humans won their 2nd consecutive event, sending shockwaves through the game's hierarchy. Team after team approached them afterward, seeking advice and forming new alliances. Security footage of Washington's training sessions leaked to station media. Videos showed him lifting weights that would crush most species, running for hours without rest and recovering from exertion in time frames that seemed impossible to Council physiologists. Some competitors began withdrawing from events that would pit them directly against humans. Others started adopting human techniques, creating a wave of change throughout the games. The Valaxian leadership called an urgent private meeting that evening. This cannot continue, Admiral Zex Kavala stated. If these Deathworlders win the Grand Melee, 2,000 years of established hierarchy will be undermined. What do you propose? Asked his second-in-command. They haven't broken any rules. Then we must ensure they fail in ways that don't require rule-breaking, the Admiral replied. Prepare the special countermeasures for the space navigation event tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the human quarters, the team celebrated their success while planning for the next challenge. 2 victories is unprecedented for a new species, Rodriguez said. We've already made history. But we haven't made our point yet, Wright responded. The space navigation event will be different. They'll be desperate to stop us now. Kim examined their navigation equipment. I've added redundant systems and manual overrides to everything. If they try to sabotage us, we'll be ready. Dr. Reeves displayed her analysis on a screen. Based on previous games, the Valaxians almost always win the space event. They'll see it as their chance to restore the proper order. Washington looked at his teammates. Then we'll just have to disappoint them again. Across the station, panic was spreading among the Council leadership. The established order that had stood for millennia was being challenged by newcomers who refused to play by the unwritten rules. Commissioner Trenok sat alone in his office reviewing the humans' performance data. What he saw troubled him deeply. If the Deathworlders continued at this pace, nothing would ever be the same again. Perhaps, he whispered to himself, it's time for a private conversation with Commander Wright. Early the next morning, before the space navigation event, Commissioner Trenok requested a private meeting with Commander Wright. They met in a small conference room away from the main activity areas of Nexus Station. Commander, you have certainly made an impression on the games, Trenok said, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. No first-time species has ever performed so disruptively. We're just competing to the best of our abilities, Wright replied calmly. Of course. Ternok moved closer. I wanted to discuss your future in the galactic community. Humanity has great potential. The Council could offer Earth special trading rights, advanced technology, even a prestigious advisory position for yourself. Wright's expression remained neutral. That sounds generous. It is. All we ask is that you show appropriate respect for traditions in the remaining events. A respectable performance, but perhaps not quite so dominant. Second or third place in the ground melee would be ideal. You're asking us to lose on purpose. Ternok's fur rippled. I'm suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement. The established hierarchy has maintained peace for thousands of years. Sudden disruptions could have unfortunate consequences. What Ternok didn't realize was that Wright was recording the conversation with a device Kim had created. When she left the meeting, she took the recording directly to her team. They're scared, Washington said after hearing it. We've got them, running. What do we do with this? Rodriguez asked, holding the recording device. Wright smiled. We show everyone exactly how their precious hierarchy works. The space navigation event was scheduled to begin 2 hours later. As teams prepared their ships for the complex obstacle course, Wright approached the central communication panel. With Kim's help, she connected the recording device. Moments later, Ternok's voice echoed throughout the station, offering rewards in exchange for deliberate failure. The reaction was immediate. Newer species erupted in anger while established powers tried to quiet the commotion. Admiral Zex Kavala stormed toward the human preparation area, his scales nearly black with rage. You've gone too far. This is an outrage. The only outrage is your corrupt system. Wright responded loudly enough for everyone to hear. We came to compete fairly. Perhaps you've forgotten what that means. Security officers separated them before the confrontation could escalate further. After an emergency meeting, the Games Committee announced that the events would continue as scheduled, but Ternok had been temporarily removed from his position pending investigation. The space navigation course was the most challenging yet. Teams had to pilot small craft through an asteroid field, navigate a radiation belt, and perform precise maneuvers through narrow gates. As the humans prepared their ship, Kim discovered evidence of tampering. They've damaged our primary navigation system and thruster controls, he announced. Can you fix it? Wright asked. Not in time, but I anticipated this. Kim revealed backup systems he had hidden throughout the ship. Plus, we can pilot manually if needed. Most species rely completely on automation for spaceflight. The Valaxians launched first, completing the course with impressive precision. Several other veteran teams also performed well. When it was the humans' turn, tension filled the observation deck. Their ship started smoothly, but as they entered the asteroid field, the sabotage became apparent. The navigation system failed completely, and then the main thrusters began to malfunction. Switching to manual, Washington announced, taking the controls. While other species would have withdrawn after such failures, the humans continued. Washington piloted with instincts and reflexes that amazed observers, weaving through asteroids that the automated systems of other ships had carefully avoided. When a secondary system failed during the radiation belt passage, Kim physically rewired the control panel while in flight, a risk no other species would consider taking. The humans completed the course with the third best time despite the sabotage, demonstrating problem-solving abilities and composure under pressure that left spectators stunned. They plan for failure modes that we consider unthinkable, one game's official commented. It's as if they expect things to go wrong and are prepared for it. By now, the station was divided. Newer species openly supported the humans, while established powers called for their disqualification on increasingly desperate grounds. Videos of human performances spread throughout the galactic communication network, reaching far beyond Nexus Station. The final event, the Grand Melee, would begin the next day. It combined elements from all previous challenges in a massive arena that took up an entire section of the station. Teams would compete simultaneously, facing environmental hazards, combat scenarios, puzzles, and navigation challenges. That evening, Admiral Zex Kavala gathered his most trusted officers. "Tomorrow we restore the proper order," he said. "These humans have humiliated us for the last time." "The backup plan is ready," his second-in-command confirmed. "They'll never reach the finish line." Dawn brought the start of the ground melee. 27 teams entered the arena to thunderous applause from spectators. The human team stood ready, having spent the night preparing for any possible sabotage or interference. As the event began, the humans deployed the strategy they had developed, not trying to directly compete with the Valaxians' superior technology, but rather using their unique abilities to find alternative paths and solutions. They moved through environmental conditions that other species found debilitating. They took calculated risks that observers found shocking. They demonstrated physical recovery times that seemed impossible by Council standards. Halfway through the event, the humans were in third place, close behind the Valaxians and another veteran team. Admiral Zex Kavala, competing personally, kept looking back at the advancing humans with growing alarm. As they approached the final challenge section, the Admiral gave a signal to his team. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the arena. "Emergency! Life support system failure in Sector 7, announced the automated system. "All participants evacuate immediately." Most teams moved toward the exits, but Wright noticed something odd. "The emergency lights are functioning normally," she said to her team, "and the air pressure hasn't changed." Kim quickly scanned the area with a device he had built. "It's fake. The life support is fine. They're trying to stop the event before we can finish." Wright made a quick decision. "Washington, Rodriguez, continue to the finish line. Reeves, Kim, and I will check the actual life support controls. Something's not right." Washington and Rodriguez pushed forward while the others diverted to a maintenance corridor. There they found Admiral Zex Kavala's second-in-command, tampering with the station's actual life support systems. "Stop," Wright shouted. "You'll kill everyone on this level." The Valaxian officer turned, weapon in hand. The hierarchy must be preserved no matter the cost. A struggle ensued. Wright and her team managed to subdue the officer, but not before he damaged critical systems. Warning lights, real ones this time, began flashing. "Oxygen levels dropping," Kim reported. "He's locked out the main controls. We need to manually reset the system from the primary junction." The junction was located near the finish line of the Grand Melee. Wright contacted Washington. "We have a real emergency. Lives are at stake." Washington and Rodriguez were neck and neck with Admiral Zex Kavala at the final obstacle. Victory was within reach, but when they received Wright's message, they immediately abandoned the race. "What are you doing?" the Admiral demanded as they turned away from the finish line. "Saving lives," Washington replied. "You might want to help, unless you want to be remembered as the Admiral who let people die to win a game." The next 20 minutes became legendary across the galaxy. Humans and Valaxians worked side by side to restore life support systems. Washington used his strength to open jammed emergency doors. Admiral Zex Kavala helped evacuate competitors, trapped in a low-oxygen section. Kim and Valaxian engineers raced to reset the primary systems before permanent damage occurred. When the crisis ended, the Grand Melee was officially suspended. An investigation quickly revealed the sabotage attempt and the humans' role in preventing disaster. 3 days later, at the closing ceremony, the Games Committee announced unprecedented results. The Valaxian Empire placed first overall based on points from earlier events. Humanity placed second, an achievement no first-time species had ever approached. But the official record included a special commendation. The human team demonstrated that true victory lies not in domination, but in preservation of life and principle. After the ceremony, Admiral Zex Kavala approached Commander Wright. His scales now a humble blue-gray. "You could have won. Why give that up?" "Because proving we could win wasn't the most important thing," Wright answered. "Showing who we really are was." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Perhaps after all these centuries, we needed Deathworlders to remind us of what matters most." As the human team prepared to return to Earth, Representatives from 17 species came to bid them farewell and establish direct diplomatic relations, bypassing the traditional council hierarchy. "You've changed everything," the Arxuri delegate told them. "The old system will never be the same." Decades later, a young Valaxian asked their elder about the legendary games when everything changed. The elder,